we're learning a sicha, a speech that the Lubavitcher Rebbe made in 1952. And it is talking about how the Jewish people damage themselves. And this is not a political statement, this is an individual work, how each and every Jew damages himself. And as a result of that, the whole Jewish people. Now, the Jewish people are a little bit different from many other nations. First of all, what's called the chosen people. That's what it says in the Bible. The Jewish people were chosen by God. They were all together in Egypt. God took them out. He gave them the Torah. He brought them all into the land of Israel, gave them the land of Israel. But why? Why did he do it? What are we chosen for? What are we supposed to do? So it says we're chosen in order to be examples to this world what God wants. What God wants from the world. According to Judaism, the prime attention of God is on this world. This is the most important thing, is this world. Not the rewards and punishments for people, but rather that this world itself should be perfected. That's what it says in the beginning of the creation. On the sixth day, Asher Bora Elokim La'asot, that God created the whole world in order La'asot, to fix up. So that's the job of the Jews. The Jews are responsible for the whole entire world, including all of the nations of the world. All the human beings, each and every human being, is the responsibility of the Jewish people. That's why Abraham, the first Jew, when he made his circumcision, God changed his name from Avram to Avraham. And he said, it means from now on, you are the father of all nations. You are the spiritual father of all of the nations of the world. So all the nations, all the people in the world are responsible to us. But what in fact has happened? Exactly the opposite. Instead of us elevating and bringing meaning and purpose and direction to the world confuses us. The world has confused the Jewish people, taken the Jewish people to the point where Jewish people now, and a lot of times, are leaders in confusion, masters of confusion, confusing the world, confusing the goal of mankind, and confusing themselves. Says the reason why, because the Jewish people act like sheep. Sheep, that's one of the 4 types of damaged articles that the Torah talks about over here. It says, if anything of yours gets lost, whether it is an ox or a donkey or a sheep or a garment. So the Rebbe says, why do you have to repeat all these things? I mean, it could just say, if anything of yours gets lost or gets stolen, and you catch the person who did it, why does it have to enumerate an ox or a donkey or a sheep or a... So the Rebbe says these are 4 different types of confusion, 4 different types of ways that a person can get lost. Or more particularly, because the Torah is given to the Jews, 4 forces that cause Jews to get lost. One is an ox. People have bad tempers. they want to rule everything. Another is a donkey. A donkey is always cold. Well, it's not inspired. You have to be inspired. Another one is a garment. He explains that the word garment is the same thing as lying and being deceitful. Beged, boged. And, says the Rebbe, the most prevalent nowadays is the sheep. So the Jewish people are like a wandering, confused sheep. Why? Because sheep, they're known for their placidity. They're placid animals. Right? Just go wherever, whatever. They just go here, they go there, whatever. The same thing the Jewish people, they have lost their courage as Jews. When it comes to fighting, whenever it comes to a battle, the army is the greatest if the government lets them fight, which is very rare. But when they do fight, they're very, very good. But the problem is that for Judaism, they're not willing to defy the world. They're like sheep. They get carried everywhere. They follow the crowd. They worry tremendously worried and concerned about what other people say about them or think about them. A tremendous obsession with being accepted by the world, and therefore acting like the world, to melt in to them. And there's hundreds of jokes about how it doesn't work. How the Jew thinks that everybody thinks he's a Jew, he thinks he's a non-Jew, and it's obvious to everyone that he's a Jew. Okay. Daled. We are now on paragraph 4 of this speech of the Rebbe. Lagabi Hanema, when it says Sep Pazur Yisrael, that the Jewish people are like a scattered sheep. Nishal Lashal, the question is, Yisrael, this name of Yisrael, what the Jewish people are called Yisrael, this is a Shem Maila. The Jews are called Ivri, Hebrews, they're called Yehuda, Jew, Yehuda. Sometimes the Jews are called Bnei Yaakov, or Bnei Yisrael, even Bnei Yisrael. What does it mean? The Jews are called Yisrael, Am Yisrael. The name Yisrael is the name of the Jewish people, which shows on victory, power, defiance. Se Pezura, it says, the sentence goes, Se Pezura Yisrael. A confused sheep, a wandering sheep, is Yisrael. Says the Rebbe, why Yisrael? Yisrael is the highest name. Se Pezura, that the Jewish people are scattered sheep, who chisaron, this is a bad thing. Madua, if so, B'shah shekatuv, wrote Solomon, when the sentence wants to say that the Jewish people are scattered, why does it say Mazkir Shem Yisrael? Why does it say that Yisrael are scattered? It should say Yaakov, or the Jews, Yehuda. This is exactly what the Navi says. Yisrael, that the Jewish people are scattered, that the Navi, I think it's Yeshaya, Isaiah, compares the Jewish people to a scattered sheep, and he says, Yisrael. This is exactly what he's saying. Kivan Sheben Yisrael, since the Jewish people, Mukhtarim B'Shem Yisrael, are called by the name Yisrael, which, if you remember from the Bible, Yisrael was the name that was given to Yaakov after he defeated the angel. Ki sarita im Elokim, that you fought with gods and with man, v'tuchal, and you won. Kalomer, Ish Yisrael, a person that's called by the name Yisrael, he inherited, every Jew inherited from Yaakov. That's why we're called Bnei Yisrael. We all inherited Lisror, lo, to rule, not only over people, but also over angels. Jews can overpower even spiritual forces. Ketzad en lo tokef. That's the question. How is it that the Jews can't summon up a little bit of the power, b'mida kazu, to the degree ad shehu nigra rechar kol echad, that the Jews go after each and every person. They're dragged after the surrounding. Hu bebechinet sep zura. How can it be that the Jews are all scattered around? This is exactly what Haman said. Soon we're coming to Purim. Haman came to Achashverosh, and he said the Jewish people are one nation and they're scattered around. Now, in the Megillah of Purim, where this sentence appears that Haman says to Achashverosh, God's name is not mentioned. So the explainers, especially in the ways of Kabbalah, they say that every time it says Hamelech, the king, or it says Achashverosh, it's also, even though of course it's referring to this king, a human being, but it's also referring to God. That Haman is complaining to Achashverosh means that the forces of destruction in the world are complaining about the Jews to God. They're saying, this is your people. why don't you just wipe them out and start over? You see it's not working, right? It's a faulty product. You have to change the whole system already. You have to change that's what Haman did. He went and completed Achashverosh. Achashverosh means God. And he said, look how the Jews are all scattered around. Let's look and see. This was the claim of Haman. Hamakatrek b'shamayim. That he is the one that prosecutes the Jews in heaven. El Achashverosh. This is God. We see, for instance, the first temple, the second temple were destroyed because the Jews did certain sins. They did certain sins. So you can ask the question, so a person does sin, so what? That means you have to destroy his house. Here we have in Israel, no, they just passed a law nowadays. I think they just recently, that they're not going to destroy the houses of the terrorists anymore. Not destroying terrorists' house. A terrorist comes and he, God forbid, he kills, he maims. This, you put the guy into prison, you punish him, but why should you punish his house? Why should you punish his family? You don't wreck a person's house. The same thing, right? That of course is insanity, right? Is insanity. First of all, why even let the guy live is also insanity. But let's talk about, here the Jewish people did sins, so God destroyed the base of Mikdash. What did he destroy the house for? Why did he destroy the house, right? If the confused Israeli government, they're so worried about what the world is going to think, but they don't destroy a house of a terrorist, so why would God, who's supposed to be kind and just, why would he destroy the house? So the answer is, because when Jews do sins, so there's what we call prosecutors in heaven. They create angels that go in front of God and say, look, this is the Jewish people, maybe wipe them out. So God said, listen, I have an idea. I'll wipe up the house. I'm not going to wipe out the Jews. I'll destroy the Beis HaMikdash. I'll destroy their house. I won't destroy them.
And that, in fact, takes care of creating prosecutors.
It means that the prosecutors get what they want, but not completely. Because they want destruction.
The house isn't there and they're sinning. The sins are based on that there's a house. If there's no house, the prosecutors don't have anything to say.
Well, listen.
What do you say?
No. In a way, but not exactly, no. The prosecutors, were they're prosecuting, that the Jewish people aren't doing what God says in the Torah to do. Not doing what it says in the Torah. So God says, listen, now the Jewish people, they're on their land, and they have the Beis HaMikdash, the holy temple. It's the crown jewel of God. So God says, listen, you know what, I'll take the crown away from them. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're not kings, or they're not the sons of kings, but on the other hand, they'll know that I'm really angry at them. And they'll know that they shouldn't do this anymore. That there's gonna be, how do you say, repercussions. God reacts to what we do. If the Jews had not sinned, then God wouldn't have done. Okay, you can ask a question. So the Jews say, so they sinned, but God, He's above the world. God, what does He care what we do? I mean, God is so picayune. He cares, people bow down to a statue. So they bow down to a statue. It affects God. So the answer is no. Every time a Jew goes against what God wants, so it creates forces of destruction. And these forces of destruction, they're created because the Jew went against the Torah. In other words, it's not just a little action of nothing. Right? A Jew ate a piece of not kosher food. It's a big deal. But the thing is because he used his will to go against the Creator, so it's like an insult. It's a slap in the face. Right? It's like a father comes home and he overhears one of his children talking against him. Now those words have no effect. What is it? Just a bunch of words. Right? It's a bunch of words. The words, he's throwing rocks at his father. He's not doing anything. Right? But on the other hand, those words, because... And if the son would speak those words against a next-door neighbor or somebody else, it wouldn't have such deep repercussion. But because he spoke against his father, after I've done for you, and I thought that you loved me, and I thought I cared, and I showed you how much. So it wrecks this deep connection that they have between each other, right? So the father can give his son a slap. He can say, he's not going to kill his son. He's not going to kill him. He's not going to destroy his son. No more children. I don't want any children. So it's the same thing. God destroyed the temple. But why did He do it? Because of this deep relationship. Because of this deep connection that God has with the Jews. And that's what the Holy Temple was. So In other words, that's what these bad angels are that are caused by our actions. When a person does the bad actions, a bad deed, it causes an effect on this relationship between us and God. If it wasn't this deep relationship, so God would have said, okay, do what you want to, I'll let it go this time. I'll let it go a couple times. People are people, that's the way people do things. So it says, Haman, in this case, this is not just a human being. It is, of course, a human being. But Haman played on a certain spiritual fact that the Jews, when they do sins, they create forces in heaven. They create spiritual forces, which are destructive forces. Destructive forces. Haman is the, you want to call it the devil, the whatever, the force that God makes that says, God, be strict. Come on. Got to be strict. You can't let things go the way they are. You have to be strict. The Jews are doing bad. Be severe. Give them a punishment. Right? That's called a prosecuting, the prosecution. The prosecution tries to get the maximum punishment. That's what Haman did. Yeah, what did he say? Yeshnu am echad mefuzar mefard ben amim. He said there is one nation that's scattered among the nations. V'datei hamelech ein osim, and they don't do the laws of the king. Who are we talking about as the king here? God. Yeshnu am, there is a people. Shekol mehuto as echad. Am echad. The whole essence of the Jewish people is they are a nation that is one. They are given over to the oneness of Hashem. V'hu mesugal, and he can make echad b'kol makom b'gam oretz. He can shine the oneness of God everywhere in the world, if he wants to. Everything in the world is being created by the Creator for a purpose. Everything is one part of one big, huge, beautiful symphony. Kachasuv, like it says, Goy echad boretz. That's the point of the Jews. They're one, one nation, the nation of the one God. Boretz, and they're in the world to show the world is really part of the one God. It's not a separate thing. Ubechal zot. So the Jews have the power to unite and to bring blessing into everything. And what do? Limerod gedulato, despite the greatness of the Jews, who mefuzar meforad ben amim. They're scattered among the nations. Who mitru Hashem who mitpael mikol echad. He's affected and he cares about what everybody thinks about him. Lochen et datei hamelech. That's why the laws of the king, malko sholom, they don't do it. Right? A Jew looks and sees, listen, there's 8 billion goyim in the world. They're all getting along, they're living, they're this. They don't put on tefillin. Why should I put on tefillin? 8 billion goyim in the world. They don't keep Shabbat. They light lights, they smoke cigarettes, and look, you see, they're alive. Nothing else. Why shouldn't I be like them? Why do I have to be different? What are they going to say? What should the Jew be thinking about? What does God want from me? Not what do the non-Jews say. Not what the non-Jews do. I'm a Jew. God exists. Me and God have a special connection. God wants me to do certain things. I'll do it.
This is the thinking of the Jew that wants to fit into the world.
Right.
It's not the thinking that a healthy Jew should have.
Of course not. That's what it means. That's why the Jews are scattered. But nevertheless, the name that's given to the Jew is Yisrael. Yisrael is the healthy Jew. He says, how can it be that a Jew that's healthy and that he's powerful and he has the ability to affect the world for good, that exactly the opposite happens? All of a sudden he's shy. All of a sudden,
in today's parlance, you'd say he's got the low self-image.
Low self-image. That's like you said, the joke that the person comes into the psychiatrist and he says, the psychiatrist talks to him for a while and he says, Mr. Schwartz, you have not got an inferiority complex. You really are inferior. You, in fact, you are inferior. Right? The Jews really believe that somehow or other they're inferior. There's another joke that say that a Jew and an Englishman, a Frenchman, whatever, their plane crashed in Africa and they got caught by cannibals. And the cannibals gave each one of them, you can have your last wish, and then we're going to boil all three of you together. So the Englishman says, I want a big steak and I want a big mug of beer and some nice music, to listen. They said, we don't know if we can get the music, but here's the beer, here's the steak. The Frenchman, he says, what do you want? He says, I want a nice bottle of wine. and I want also a nice a steak choice meal, and the best you can give. Can't bring music. Okay, I'll take that. At least I'm going to die. At least I'll die happy. So the Jew, what do you want? He says, I would like it if you would punch me as hard as you can in the mouth. He said, what? He said, I would like if you would punch me as hard as you can in the mouth. So they bring the biggest cannibal, and he says, okay, and he punches the Jew right in the mouth. Blood knocks over. The Jew whips out a submachine gun, an Uzi, and he kills all of them. Kills all. His mouth is bleeding and everything like that. And the other two, the Frenchman and the Englishman, said, I don't understand. Why didn't you? You had a submachine gun. Why didn't you whip it out first? He said, I didn't want anyone to say that I was the aggressor. Because the Jews are so worried about what the world will think, right? They're so worried about what the world. So it's a sick joke. There's a lot of jokes like that, about Jews that try to act like non-Jews and that all the non-Jews know that he's a Jew. Hey, hatalich hadarush, what should be? Sheyehudi b'kol makom. In other words, don't be a sheep. That's what it is, a scattered sheep. It doesn't say a scattered cat or a sheep. A sheep is, he goes wherever. How can what should Jews do? What should he do? Good. Okay, we know what the problem. What's the solution? Sheyehudi b'kol makom shubo, a Jew, wherever he comes. Now you have to remember, this is 1952 that the Rebbe says. This is fresh right after the Holocaust. And Jews had the lowest possible self-image. Jews were really ashamed to be a Jew. And it was like a bad thing to be a Jew, especially a religious Jew, right? A religious, what do you get out of being Jewish? You get starved, you get beaten, you get murdered. These people were fresh out. And there was in America, there was the reform movement was growing, and the conservative movement was growing. And their banner was that don't act like a Jew. Don't act like a Jew outside. Be like everybody else. Be normal.
Assimilate.
Right? Assimilate. Be everybody. Of course, you'll have a synagogue. You'll have a synagogue. You go to the synagogue so that you won't be totally, you'll have some identity. You won't throw your Judaism away. But what type of Judaism is left? What are you not throwing away? You're not throwing away your ability to be, a religion like all the other religions. You'll be like everybody else. Everybody has a religion. You'll have a religion also. All of a sudden comes the Lubavitcher. People were ashamed simply to be a Jew. They had no pride. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe came and he restored the pride and the courage and the glory and the purpose and the identity of what Jews are. I remember I heard someone speak once. A rabbi, he was not a Chabad rabbi, he was Bells or some other group. And he wore, a kippah, he had payas and everything. He was a very good speaker. And he said that he's been speaking all over the world. He was an older fellow, 60s, whatever. He said he was very forceful, good speaker. He said very positive things, I think. And he said, listen, I want you to know, he told me, I'm not a Lubavitcher. I'm not a Lubavitcher. He said, I admire the Rebbe. So, but one thing I'll tell you, he says, it used to be that when I was speaking on the same, venue, whatever, as a professor, so I would always feel, here's a professor, this guy knows what he's doing. And I'm a rabbi, I just have the religious side of the picture. So, I'll keep to my little business. So since I read some of the things about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, exactly the opposite. I said, this guy, he's a professor. Tomorrow, what he knows, all of his knowledge is going to be knocked down by some bigger professor. But I have eternal knowledge. I have absolute truth, right? I have objective values that will never change. Now I feel totally different. Not that I feel superior to anyone else, but I certainly don't feel inferior. So that's what the Rebbe is coming here now to give back the pride to the Jewish people. Don't ever, ever, ever be ashamed of being a Jew, not in thought, not in speech, and not even in action. Right? In the world, don't be ashamed. And you see, that's very surprising. Chabad, no Chabad Chassid, especially in the Chabad houses, would dream of taking his beard off, or even trimming his beard. Now that makes you look weird, right? That makes you look weird. So you think, okay, if you're going to have a big beard and you're going to act like a rabbi and you're going to be austere and you're going to be this and so, you don't touch me. I'm a rabbi. I am one of the clergy, Okay, you can understand it. But Chabad doesn't do that. Chabad mixes in with everybody. And sometimes they even go, if they're clients of the people in the show, they go to the baseball game. They go to the baseball game. They go to the football game. They're mixing with everyone else. And you think everyone would look at the guy and say, this is a weirdo. What? Exactly the opposite. Nobody cares. No one cares, right? You have a big beard, you have tzitzis hanging out. Once in a while somebody looks at you, and the Jews are the ones who look at you more than anyone else. Exactly the opposite. If you're proud of yourself, it makes people happy, right? I remember once a long time ago, I was walking in Macy's. This is a few stories I have like this. I was walking in Macy's. It was in America. It was near the New Year's season, whatever it is in America. And there were these black guys that came in. Black guys that came in, they walked opposite. And one of them said, it's a nice beard. He had a little beard. And I said, nice beard. So I said to him, don't give up, keep your beard. He said, I got a little beard. I said, let my people grow. Oh, he liked that. He laughed. He shook my hand. The guy doesn't know me from nowhere. We shook hands. We hugged each other. I was walking once in an airport. It was late at night. And there was a bar in the airport that was still open. It was a bar in the airport open. So I walked back, and there was these hillbilly guys with boots, on, hat, and it was them. And they were sitting, and one guy was, had his feet up, and there was nobody around, just me and these guys. I figured, I don't know, is this going to be, I said, is this going to be trouble? I don't know what's going to be. So one of them looks up at me like this, and he says, nice beard, dude. I wasn't thinking about it at all, If you're not ashamed of yourself, then no one's going to be. And so somebody says something. So, it says dirty Jew. Let him say what he wants to. But it's his problem. It's not my problem. To be afraid, to be intimidated, to be angry, to be ashamed. Why? For what? What for? I have my identity. God created me to be a Jew. He created him to be a non-Jew. That's also wonderful. It's also, everybody that God created, he created to be his thing. Don't be ashamed of who you are. Just be who you are, but don't blame the other guy. You're going to look at the other guy and say, I have to find favor in his eyes. He's going to make me angry and he's going to make me the... Says the Rebbe, what should a Jew do? A person, wherever he goes, a Jew. He has to be the one that sets the tone of the spirituality, which is the true existence. In other words, the values of the place, wherever he is, the one who sets the tone for true values has to be a Jew. What does it mean to be a Jew? To be friendly, to be helpful, to be truthful, right? Not to get involved in negative things at all, in any type of negativity whatsoever, right? Wherever you are, you have a chance to learn a little Torah, learn Torah. You have a chance to say Tehillim, say Tehillim. You have a chance to help somebody, help somebody. He'ir lekulam. In other words, to shine the whole place up. Hasviva kulo, v'amedina kulo, your whole surrounding and your whole country. That's what you should do. But makom zeh, instead of this, he loses his balance. V'lozu, not only that, bilavad she'eno mashpia, not only does he not have a good effect on anything or anyone around him, he becomes affected by all the bad things. Hu mechakeh et hashtuyot. He copies the craziness of the country, shel sviv v'shel ha'ir, of the surrounding and of the city. Tattoos with piercings, you see it in Israel all the time. Crazy, right? For eternal. Why non-Jews do it is also an amazing thing to me. But at least it's not forbidden for them. The thing is forever. But you have a person making a tattoo, and crazy. Doesn't make any sense. Your skin is not nice. What's wrong? Your skin is bad. I don't understand why. But makom she'ashpia al sviva, in the place where instead of having an effect on the surrounding, legabe kol prat, in regarding kol detail of the Shulchan Aruch, of the Jewish law, should decide what to do. Hofechet hasaviva, instead, the surrounding, it decides what to do. Who is his rabbi? His next door neighbor. We'll see. Hashechen. Hofech liot lidido aposek acharon. Who is the one who decides what he does day after day? His next door neighbor. Says his next door neighbor has 2 cars, he has to have 3 cars. Right? His next door neighbor has this, he has to have the same thing. His next door neighbor has red shoes, he gets red shoes. Right? The next door neighbor has a mohawk, haircut, and it's the dyed pink, he has to do the same thing. He wants to show his next door neighbor that he's cool. Sha'al piv yishak abayet kulo v'sidro. According to what his next door neighbor does, that's what he does. There's a lot of Jews that have what they Hanukkah bush. Huh? In America. There's a Christmas tree, they have to have a Hanukkah bush. To show that he's equal. Right? That's the same thing. Okay. What can we do? Inyan zeh shel sep zura Yisrael. I'll never forget, we once went in front of a school, this was in California. It was right before Hanukkah. And we asked children if they're Jewish, we gave them Chanukiot. Hanukkah. Some lady came up and she grabbed her kid away and she said, Zeh chutzpah, an Israeli lady. Zeh chutzpah. It was one of the first times I heard Hebrew spoken. This was before I moved to Israel. This is, I was just about Tshuva, about 2 years. Chutzpah, zeh chutzpah, ich taseh davar kazeh. I didn't understand half of the words you were saying. I had to remember what it says in the Gemara, what does it mean? Chutzpah, chatzef, all the words, I had to put it all together. And she was blazing mad that I called her son, I asked her son if he was Jewish. And I separated him from all the other kids. I was just, I remember when I was in school, I was, before I became religious, I was totally not, anything to do with Judaism. But I never denied being a Jew. I never denied that I was a Jew. I didn't know what it meant. I had no idea what it meant whatsoever. But I never denied it. At least I don't remember. I don't think so. I didn't stand up, for my, for my rights or for the this or that. I couldn't. It's a very surprising. And now Israelis, no problem. If you go in America, you ask people, "Are you Jewish?" Right? People usually in America, they won't say no, I'm not Jewish. Jews, they won't say no. They'll just walk by and they won't say anything. Right? Or they say, "What do you care?" Or they say, something like "not today" or something. They'll say something sort of a joke or something. But Israelis, they say, "Are you Jewish?" "Lo, lagamre no." Okay, that was, listen, what can we do? That was the whole idea behind Zionism. It wasn't to make you proud to be a Jew. It wasn't to strengthen your Jewish identity. Exactly the opposite. Everybody was so ashamed of being a Jew. They were so afraid of the non-Jews that we said, how can we, they realized that the non-Jews, they wouldn't let us alone. They say that Zionism started off with Dreyfus, the Dreyfus trials, right? That Herzl saw the Dreyfus trials. And now Dreyfus was a totally assimilated Jew. Totally assimilated. He had no sign of Judaism whatsoever. No, nothing whatsoever. And he came out from his trial and they found him guilty. The fact is he was innocent. They came out from the trial and the whole crowd was standing there. It was in all the papers. And Herzl was one of the news reporters. He was from Vienna. He was covering it. He was a very good writer. And he said, he came out and Dreyfus said, "I am innocent, long live France, vive la France." And the whole crowd screamed out, "Death to the Jews." Death to the Jews. What were the Jews? How did the Jews have anything to do with it? So he says, no, all of a sudden, he said, Herzl realized that you can't run away from Judaism. You can't run away. Right? So he had this, how can we get rid of this plague, this curse, which is called Judaism? How are we going to do it? And finally, he came up with the answer, listen, we'll be a nation like every other nation. We'll transform Judaism, that it'll be a nationality. It won't be a religion. It won't be an identity. It'll be a nationality. People who live in Israel will be called Israelis. People who don't live in Israel, they have the potential to come in Israel, but if they don't, they're sort of, but there's no Judaism as such. It's not. It's just this. And he wanted to make it in, who knows, Madagascar. He had all these plans. It had nothing to do with Eretz Israel. Right? And the others, they said, no, we have this nostalgic, it's a better sale. It's a better advertising stunt. If we say the Jewish people, they're coming back to their home, their homeland, right? This land is mine. God gave this land to me. When did he give it the land to me? When? Herzl. Herzl gave the land. What do you mean God gave the land? So what are you supposed to do with the land? You do with the land what God wants. What? Talking about God. That's what made all our problems, right? There is, in Israel, there seems that are things that are said here that it's astounding to see how ashamed they are and how afraid they are of the whole world. Astounding. There was a big artist here in Israel that he said, when I look at the religious Jews, I understand why Hitler killed 6 million of them.
There's not too many of them, though.
Don't worry, first of all, there's more than you think, number one. There was a lot of people that agreed with him. Very few people censored him. It said that he was wrong. A few religious people. There was one religious person that went and he got all of the copies of Der Stürmer, the Nazi magazine from the 30s, the early 30s, when they were this, and he found all of the anti-Semitic pictures were all non-religious Jews. אני רק מקליט. אתה רוצה משהו? כן, תיקח, זה לא מפריע. לא. I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, so he found that all of the characters, all of the cartoons were non-religious Jews, all the cartoons. And Hitler's whole thing was that the Jews are trying to look like us and they're marrying our daughters and they're trying to act like us, but we know what they are. They're really a cancer. It's just they're making themselves similar to our cells. It's like this growth that's growing in the German people. It's destroying the purity of Germany, right? And these Jews, what were they trying to do? They were trying to ingratiate themselves. And they were ashamed. They were afraid of being Jews. They were ashamed. This whole idea of reform started in Germany. Started in the what is it, in the 1900s, in the 1800s, late 1700s. Yeah, sure, right. With Mendelssohn, all these people. Okay. The Rebbe is trying to turn the tide. He's trying to, first of all, give Jews pride in their Judaism. What do you got to be proud about being a Jew? What's there to be proud about? What's there to be proud about? You have true values. You're God's people. You were put here to make the world a meaningful place, a blessed place, a firm place, a place where there's no murder and destruction and licentiousness. So let's go. Inyan Zeh, this whole idea of Sepzura Yisrael, that the Jewish people are scattered like a sheep, Heder to Kifot, a lack of defiance. Hu b'mida kazu, it's yeah. Sit